2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
Let's talk through some interesting questions.
Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin.
Brannon, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I got my 2 boiled eggs here for breakfast.
It sounds delightful.
Yeah. You know, growing up, I could have lived off of eggs and frozen burritos. Like those 2 things. Like
you basically did.
Yeah, I kind of did. Yeah,
I think you had eggs almost every day for breakfast.
I'd walk around the neighborhood. I'd like color, and I'd sell my pictures for 25 cents to the neighbors. When I'd get like, $1.50 or something, I'd walk over to Choice Market and buy myself a Lynn Wilson burrito.
And that was
it was like the best day of my life.
It was such a treat, man.
Yeah, like, man, if I could afford it, I'd get some Big League Chew with it. Like, hey, it was a great day.
I always love the Lynn Wilson burrito that was the cherry turnover.
Those were surprisingly good. Like, amazing.
I didn't know you were peddling your artwork to the neighbors.
Oh yeah, I made a lot. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life.
So funny.
Me and Dustin Driggs, we'd like, then we compare who could make the most money.
I remember the day I came home from school and you and Rex were out on the corner where the bus stop was, with like this little table where you guys got bought a bunch of candy bars and sodas from the store.
Yeah.
And you were upselling everybody getting off the bus.
Yep. Like one red vine was like 25 cents.
Yeah. Some things never change.
Some things never change, I guess. Anyways, we're going to dive into some interesting questions today, Tyler. So we've been getting questions from people. Some of these questions are pretty interesting, I think, complex questions. And we'll just break them down, kind of see how far we can get. So
yeah, the first one is not a question, but it's actually comes from a previous caller to the show. And he was just being kind to us, I guess, and wanted to give us a joke. So we're going to share the joke with everybody. So shout out to Danny here. It says,
Someone told me a joke that I thought you guys would find funny. So I'm asking you this question. How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to want to change.
Ain't that the truth?
Isn't that the key to being a good therapist? Is making
Yes.
sure that you pass it off to your client all the time.
Yep. Yep. The light bulb needs that self-determination. Yeah. Thank you, Danny. Okay. So I have one here. It says, I've been on this journey since December. So part of my story is that I've grown up with a fetish, and it has been a part of my sexual arousal template. I'm working through my past, going to therapy in a group, and trying to work on my shame through it all. But there's still one question my wife asks, and I've been curious about it too. I'm making changes, finding my voice, remaining sober, and choosing green circle good activities. However, with my arousal sexual template, can that ever change? I don't feel I'm as attracted as I was, but I'm sure my body will still react. Will that ever change?
So it's a good, interesting question. We get versions of this quite a bit, Brannon. And yeah. First thing I just want to maybe clarify for people who are listening is when he says, I'm doing green circle good activities. What he's talking about is a kind of a model that's got like the red, yellow, and green concept, where green is where you're in the safe zone, living your life in a wholehearted kind of healthy way. Yellow would be more of the risky types of behaviors and things are kind of falling apart emotionally. And then red is when you're kind of in the thick of the worst part of it, when your life's kind of coming apart, you're acting out, like all of that stuff. So basically what we're hearing is that, hey, I'm really committed to recovery. I am doing a lot here and things are starting to change. Am I ever going to actually fully be able to let go of this fetish that I carry and the feelings that are there?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. So do you want to take a stab at it first, Tyler? Or?
Sure. Yeah. So I think what you're describing is actually something that I see that's pretty typical for a lot of people that I work with. That, if you think about sexual templates and how they're formed, there's all sorts of factors that go into that, right? There's personality, there's genetics, and whether we like to know it or admit it or not, and sometimes we're not even aware of it, there's also socialization that goes along with it. And, a lot of the people that I work with, if they start to really track back to how they were socialized into their sexuality, they find that their template was actually significantly influenced by the way that they were socialized. So, and so if that's true, then on some level over time, there can actually be a change. And it sounds like he's experiencing a little bit of a change where maybe the noise of that fetish is starting to become more and more muted and it's less and less important. And it also sounds like he's trying to work on his shame a little bit, which I think is the more important thing here, that the more acceptance he comes to of the fact that that's been a part of his template doesn't mean he will act on it, doesn't mean that it's going to be something that is him and his identity. But in my experience, the more that it becomes acknowledged that that's been there and that is there, and it's met with compassion and curiosity and understanding without having to continue the action, the less loud that part becomes.
But does it ever go away?
And I think it can change. And in some cases, I think people actually do change over time. And sometimes it doesn't fully all the way go away, but it doesn't mean you can't have a rich, wholehearted life.
I'd like to compare it a little bit to an alcoholic. So an alcoholic's just drinking it in. And then all of a sudden they want to sober up and they want to get in recovery and they start working recovery. And let's say they stay in recovery for a while and they have some good sobriety going on. If they walk into a bar, is that a good idea?
It's just going to mean a whole lot of extra work. It's probably not a great idea.
Why is that not a good idea?
Because it's going to potentially elicit those same reactions and responses that have been learned in the past.
Right. So although that alcoholic is attracted to drinking and wanting to drink, that person who's addicted to alcohol can live their life sober and really in some ways not have the desire to drink. If they, I've met alcoholics who have like 30 years of sobriety and they're still saying, look, I'm an alcoholic. I don't go in the bars. I live my life as if I'm powerless over that. Now they have developed pathways in their brain that really like alcohol. And those pathways will open up and get used. They're like superhighways pretty easily. So you're not hanging out, at the tailgate lot with Bud Light everywhere. If you're struggling with alcoholism, your arousal template is similar. It's a little bit different, but it's similar in that your brain has pathways where it's attracted and has used certain things for dopamine hits. And so that's still going to happen if you don't be honest with yourself. And I think this whole idea of I just want to erase all the whatever inside of me is actually a dangerous thought. Because you want to be honest with yourself that is there. You want to accept that is there, and you want to live your life in a way that you're sure that you're not going to go relapse. So does that work, Tyler? Does that analogy work?
Yeah, I want to go a little bit further with that, Brannon, because if we look at the science of how the brain works with the neural pathways you're talking about, without realizing it, what happens with our sexual template, that you said it well, is we actually create the super highway that feels like it's just built into us, right?
Right.
And then what happens, and this is for any type of an addiction too, this isn't just about sexual template, but I think it applies here, is we realize that super highway isn't serving us well. And so what we have to do is we have to go and we have to start not traveling that super highway anymore, which means allowing the brain to use those resources to start developing other things. And then in recovery, what we do is we lay another highway over the top of the old one.
Yeah.
And that's the change of life, right? It's like I remember hearing a talk one time about a park up in Idaho Falls that used to be a landfill that they had reclaimed into what's now a beautiful park. In essence, that's what happens with the brain. Is in recovery, I have this thing that I've trained so well that it happens automatically. That's a habit. And now I'm going to reduce that habit. I'm going to stop that habit, but then I have to lay something over the top. And what happens is that works really, really well. And if I continue to nurture the new pathway, the new road over the top, then my life is, clear, it's bright, it's honest, it's new, it's the park. But if I go back to the old things that used to be the super highway that was the unhealthy one, I will fall back into that same super highway a lot faster because there's a propensity for me to fall into that more quickly. So like, someone who's a drug addict or an alcoholic or something, they can live that new super highway right over the top, and they can be sober for 5, 6, 10 years. And if they have a relapse, their path back to rock bottom is way faster on a relapse than if they were developing the addiction in the first place.
Right.
Because the brain has the memory there.
Boom.
Even though the neural pathways are no longer as strong, they redevelop more quickly on a relapse.
Yep.
Right. But
Yep.
there is actual change that does take place. Right.
Yes.
That new pathway over the top, the park, is really a park. It just also has the underneath that if you spend time in the underneath, you could draw that garbage back up pretty quickly.
Yep. Yep. The other thing I want to say to this, Tyler, is, in a way, now hang in here through this as I say this. In a way, we are all perverts. Everyone's a pervert. If we had a projector and it was like showing, a video of all of our arousal templates and fantasies to the world, it would be pretty crazy. So everybody has deviant, weird, different things on their arousal template, some more deviant than others, right? It's important to understand that's normal. Now where consequence comes from your sexual behaviors is when you step into the behaviors, right? Now, I'm not saying to stay stuck in your head and entertain thoughts and all that. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is things will come up on your arousal template, and they may or may not fit within your socialization of what's okay and what's not okay. They may or may not fit. And when they don't fit, I think something that someone tries to do is to stuff it down, is to kill it. And what that does is it gives it life.
They become more attached to it.
More because your focus, the anxiety kicks in, it has more energy behind it, all this stuff. Versus when something like that comes up, to acknowledge it, to unburden it, to give it actually a little bit of love, which sounds weird, of like, I see you, thank you, I notice you, I'm not going to act on you, which is a much different way of stepping into your power and controlling your behaviors than force.
Really what you're saying, Brannon, is the ability to acknowledge it allows you to then have the choice of how to dance with it rather than pretending it's not there and stuffing it down and then having it dominate your thoughts and your feelings.
Yeah, it's like, okay, if I'm the alcoholic who's like, nope, I don't have a problem with alcohol. Nope, I'm not going to have. So I can walk down the aisle at the store that sells alcohol because I'm telling myself I don't have that problem because I can't have that problem. You're more likely to walk down that aisle. If you're telling yourself, you know what? I'm
prone to alcohol.
I love to drink. I love it. Tastes good. I enjoy it. Therefore, I'm not going to walk down that aisle. And you can see the difference there. One is owning it with acceptance, not with shame, with acceptance, and therefore having the power to make choice versus trying to pretend like it's not there and force it out of you, which doesn't work.
And the interesting thing about that, Brannon, back to this question too, is that over time, that alcoholic knows that about himself, and he eventually gets to the spot where he doesn't have to make the conscious choice to avoid the aisle because he's so used to just avoiding the aisle.
Yep, because it's just in there, automatic.
It's
at first, that aisle's like pulsating at him, like, I just want. And as time goes on, like you were saying about the landfill, it's covered over, and it's like, this isn't that hard. Like, I don't need to go down that aisle. I'm good. So to answer his question about arousal template, it's hard because with alcohol, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, like that's something you should avoid or whatever. With arousal template, there's an added element of shame and disgust and self-rejection because like sexual stuff is so naughty and bad and deviant. And so it's hard to go through that path of, I'm going to accept that that's there and acknowledge that that's there in order to have the power over it. And I'm not saying you go accept it by admitting everything to everybody, but within yourself, I accept that that's there. I'm aware of that is important.
Yeah. And then it gives me the ability to make choice.
Right.
That's the key here.
Right.
So yeah, sounds like you're on the right track. Actually, the person who submitted this question, I think you're going to see and feel that the new habit loops that you form and that are currently forming will eventually become more of the normal. And when that's more of the normal, you can still acknowledge that is and has been something that's on your template, but that it's like the mindful approach. I watched this video on mindfulness about the whole two wolves thing, and which wolf grows, the angry one or the happy one. It's the one you feed, right? Like that famous story. It's not that you go kill the angry wolf. It's that you acknowledge that it's there, and then you choose to put your attention on the things that will nurture the different part of you. And that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yep.
And when you do that, that becomes the new normal, which means it's not the new normal is no longer the work, it's the normal.
Yeah.
So then the work is no longer there to be like, oh, I got to hurry and change my template, whatever else. It's like, oh yeah, I'm living a new life.
Yep. In his question, you could hear it. It's like, I know I've had this thing. I'm aware. I kind of heard him say, I'm aware that it could come back. Like I'm aware that it's there.
Great.
And I hate to tell him this, but that's where you want to be. That you want to be in that place. And as you're aware of that over time, like Tyler's saying, you'll go days and you'll be like, I haven't even thought about that.
Hasn't even crossed my mind.
That hasn't, but you get that over time of being honest with yourself that it is there, right?
Yep.
So acknowledging that it's there doesn't give you permission to act on it. Acknowledging that it's there does give you consciousness and power to choose what you want to do with it.
Yeah, that's great. Good question. Thanks for submitting that. We okay to do another one, Brannon? Can we do another
Let's
one?
do it.
Okay. This one says, am I codependent if I want my husband to respond to my texts, let me know his plans, end the day with me, and make me a priority? When he talks to others, he refers to his kids, his house, his everything, instead of our kids, our home, we have, we will. I think he forgets he is married and I'm the only one in this marriage. Does this mean I'm codependent?
I would love to have a further discussion with her to flush this out more. But I am hearing some tendencies of codependency. And I think there's an effective way that she could go about stepping into her truths and her boundaries and those type of things. So
yeah, break down the tendencies and then break down the second part.
So anytime we try to get somebody to do something so that then we can be happy or at peace, we are attaching to them, or so that we can get self-worth, we are attaching to them those things, and we're over attached to somebody, and I would call that codependency. We don't have control over other people, and so I realize in this situation it's like, well, that's easy for you to say if I'm getting rejected all day long and he's acting like I don't even exist. I get it. But when you're turning to him and saying, in order for me to be okay, I need you to acknowledge me and see me, that sounds codependent to me. Now, are her feelings still valid, Tyler?
100%. I think maybe where you're going, Brannon, is that these are valid feelings, and the codependency is coming in if this is actually truly the relationship, and she's staying in the relationship expecting him to change to make her happy. That's the codependent part. Yeah. Because anybody else would be in that relationship and go, I want to be with a partner who values me and sees us as a team.
Yeah. And so it's the codependent behaviors that we'll see are things like, you know what, you have to do this, you have to sit down with me and check in, you have to say this, you have to blah, 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 blah. That won't get her what she ultimately wants.
Yeah. When you read that question, Brannon, what do you think is underneath that question? What does she actually really want?
She wants what most women and most people want in a relationship. They want to be loved and seen and acknowledged and protected and cared for and all of those things.
That's not codependent.
That's not codependent at all.
No.
To desire those things is not codependent.
That's valid.
All. That's valid. So the question is how do you fight for those things, those values, and those things that you desire without turning to him and trying to force his behavior in order to get those things? If you have to force the behavior from him, you're missing what you actually desire anyways.
Even if he does it, you won't trust that it's genuine because you forced him to do it.
Exactly. So it's back to our favorite quote. One of them is that healthy boundaries invite good relationship, and healthy boundaries destroy bad relationships. And so this is where it puts you with a catch-22 here. It's between you're putting it on the line. When you stay codependent, you can stay in that relationship for a long, long time because it's like, well, I'm going to continue to try to get him to change. I'm going to continue to play the victim. I'm going to continue to be angry versus, you know what? Like, I'm going to step into my power, my truths, and I'm going to see whether or not he's going to love me or not. And I'm going to get an answer.
I will get an answer, and it'll be an answer that comes from a place of authenticity, which could be painful, but it will also be a movement in the right direction regardless.
So Tyler, let's walk through like an example here with this. So let's say he's discounting her, pretending like she's not even alive. What's a good, healthy way for her to show up interdependent in the relationship with healthy boundaries?
Yeah. So let's say that one of the more typical ways that might not be as healthy first, and then let's give another example of what might be more healthy, even though they might sound similar. Okay. So he's doing that. I go to him and I say, I'm setting a boundary with you, and you have to check in with me every single day. And every time you talk to anyone else on the phone that I'm around and you talk about things we're doing, you better say we instead of I.
Yeah.
That would be codependent. That would not be healthy. And then if he does or doesn't do that, I'm still stuck because there's no then. A good boundary is an if then kind of a thing, right?
Yep.
So something that would be more healthy would be go to your values and say, I value being in a relationship where I'm seen as an equal partner and where I'm valued and where I'm cherished and where I'm, respected. And if I'm not feeling respected or valued in the relationship due to these kinds of behaviors, this is what I'm going to do.
For me, independent of you.
I'm going to vocalize my feelings. I'm going to take a time out. I'm going to go reach out and talk it through with somebody. I might even ask for some physical space away from this for a while because I'm not going to stay and be treated this way. But you hear it. It's all, I'm going to keep my power and make my choices rather than you're going to do all of this stuff. And that's my boundary.
Right. And it sounds like an ultimatum, and it sounds like control. So, and this, we really have to differentiate this. If I'm the spouse and I go to my partner and I say, I value connection and I value appreciation and acknowledging that I'm alive. I value that. So if you don't do that, I'm going to kick you out of the house. Okay. That can be unhealthy if I am using it as a threat and trying to control the other person.
Yes.
Okay? That could be healthy. Now, let me explain how. If I go to them and I say all those things, I value this, I need that, and I'm in a place of genuine self-respect, self-preservation, and truth for myself, then I might need some space from them, right? And so, like, I'm gonna, if I continue to feel unloved and unseen, I'm gonna ask for a separation. If you're willing to go, that would be great. If you're not willing to go, I'm gonna have to go.
I'll be the one to go
because that's in my control. But I need that space because for me, I got to protect myself from these feelings of rejection and judgment and those type of things. I have to protect myself for me and my heart, and my soul. So I'm not trying to control you and force you. I will know whether you care about who I am or not as I act honestly in this relationship. Either these are like deal breakers. And I think the scary thing is when you put it on the line and have those healthy boundaries, you might find out the very thing that you're most terrified of.
Yeah. Which will be the biggest gift to you if you find it out now instead
That's
of
what we know, Tyler.
Road.
That's what we know. But when they're in that situation, it's really hard. But that is true. What Tyler just said is so true.
it would be better to get to the truth faster than taking longer.
Absolutely.
And a healthy boundary is not just a wall that I'm putting up. It's based on values, and it's an invitation to the people around me to live the same values. And if they don't want to live those values, then I have to learn to surrender that and find people that want to live similar values.
He might say, Tyler, like, okay, you want me to use the word we. That's how you would feel like I see you. And let's say, this is a dumb example, but let's say he's like, I just can't use that word. It's a trigger for me in my life and trauma and all these reasons that using the word we I can't do. But he hangs in there and he's like, but I love you and I care about you. Is there other ways that I can help you feel seen and appreciated? Right? Now you're coming to him saying, I want you to use the word we, but your actual boundary is, I want you to love me. I want you to see me and acknowledge me, right?
Value me.
So if he came back and he said, I can't use we, but I want to, you are important to me. And I want to show up in my truth about what I can do to actually meet this need for you, but also show up in my truth, right? That's the best thing for him to do. Right?
Right. And then it leads to a negotiation in a certain sense between the two of them about their values and where they overlap. Right. So in your scenario, if he comes back, if she's like, I need you to use we, and he's like, that's a trigger word for me. I go totally offline with the word we. But what I'm hearing is that you want to feel like a partner with me, and I actually want to try to make that happen. I'm willing to do this, or this towards that end, even though I'm not using the word we. And then she can go, those things actually would make me feel valued. Okay, great. Yeah. Or she'll say, no, those things don't work for me either because of this, and this. And then there's this back and forth until at such point, the couple will either nestle in for something that starts to work for them to keep working, or it'll say, man, we have such a difference in values right now that it's probably better for us to have whatever the boundaries are that we're talking about.
But Tyler, I would guess, and this is just a guess, that just being willing to have that conversation in a kind, loving way is meeting the need.
In this situation, it would be, because there would be empathy and understanding, and just me going and saying, I love you. I see you. I see you.
I want your needs to be met. I care about you. So just having that conversation would be like, oh, like I'm not just on an island out here alone and not seen. Right.
Right.
So
that conversation probably isn't happening in this scenario.
Right. What's probably happening is she's feeling something inside, and her natural reaction or response is like force and control. I want to make him love me. I want to make him. She
doesn't want to lose him.
See how important I am. I want to, right? And that what that force and control will do is actually probably push him further away and disconnect even further from her, which will trigger her again to like try to get him. And so maybe he'll go into some compliance and be fake and like go along with it for a little while, but then versus what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Yep. And there's another part of this too, that just this specific situation that I think I see this fairly frequently, especially when you're kind of just getting into recovery. The nature of any type of an addiction is that it by nature, it takes everybody and everything else out, and it becomes a very self-centered kind of a thing. And so it might be autopilot that her husband is just talking in his stuff. And some of the work of his recovery will allow him to kind of start to see a bigger, broader perspective. And eventually that might change into our stuff. If that trajectory is happening, that sometimes takes time, and that allows a partner to hang in there and see that work is being done. But if that work isn't being done at all, then you're already getting kind of some of your answers too. There's still a deep self-centeredness there, and it's going to be hard to feel like you're seen, because in some ways you might not be being seen.
Yep. Oh, I hope we answered that, Tyler.
I hope so too.
Yeah. The thing is always go back to what is in it's the serenity prayer. What is in your control, and how do you act in your truth? And if you do that, you're showing up as a healthy partner who can create an interdependent relationship. If you're acting in areas where it's not in your control and you're just acting out of fear, it's probably more codependent. So I have one more question, Tyler, if you want.
Yeah, I think the one that you're looking at is actually coming from the same person who submitted this question we just talked about. So this would maybe add some more context.
Okay, it says my husband of 30 years, 5 children and 3 grandchildren, keeps lying to me about his pornography consumption. Every few years, something will pop up that will clue me in. I believe him every time. I'm so tired of this mind game. He seems completely unaffected while I am struggling to breathe. There is never a consequence for him while I am always left holding his shiz bag. How do I reconcile in my head the person he is with the person he presents to me and the world?
Yeah, so if this is the same person that just submitted the last question, which I think it is, it actually kind of does add some context. That what I'm hearing now is that there's actually not real recovery happening, and she's too afraid to actually accept what that might mean.
Yeah, what's interesting is when I read that question, Tyler, you know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing her denial.
Explain that.
She's in denial.
And when you say that, Brannon, you're saying this from a place of like, people hear the word denial and they think, oh, there's judgment and you're going to victim blame her. You're not. You're actually going to be trying to be very helpful right now in what you're saying.
Yeah, denial is a defense mechanism to reality. And so you can hear over and over again, she's been burned. And every time she drinks it in and is like, oh, yeah, like, okay, I'll believe you. And then she's hurt again, you know. And so her denial, like, she wants something so badly. She wants a happy marriage. She wants a happy family, probably the most important things to her in her life. So the reality is so hard to face because it puts in jeopardy what she actually wants. And so to reconcile those two things, she has to take the brunt of it by living in denial. Versus facing the hard reality. The hard reality that recovery is not happening, that there's not trust in her relationship, she's not being fought for. Like, those are hard realities. And if she faces those hard realities, then the next question is does she have the fortitude and the strength to actually care about herself and not caretake for him?
Yeah, that's you can hear the rock in the hard spot there, Brannon, like because so many of her values are likely being pressed upon so deeply that one of the best, in some ways, the denial feels like the best response to try to keep holding on to the things she most wants.
Yeah.
But if she's with a person who for 30 years will lie for 3 years at a time, and then she's going, okay, I'm just going to believe him this time. Like, that's an ostrich putting their head in the sand and saying, I'm just going to pretend it's okay, and maybe we'll get another 3 years out of this.
Yep.
If you're if you're 30 years into marriage, there you've gone through a lot together, so there's a lot of water under the bridge as well, and that sometimes makes you feel like you got to stay and continue the same pattern. If you're going to keep living the same pattern, and you're not going to make a change in the way that you deal or tolerate with the way you're being treated, then the work is more on the internal side of how do I change the way I feel about it or the story that I'm living so I suffer less. If you're not going to go change the situation itself.
Yep. Tyler, have you ever eaten like a really waxy, like nasty candy bar?
yeah, probably plenty of times. No, call it a Charleston chew.
Oh no, hey, don't knock on Charleston chews.
That's exactly what a Charleston chew is.
Those are great. Same with Mr. Good bars. Both are excellent.
Both of those are the definition of wax.
We're not talking about those, but like a really cheap, just like chocolate that's barely chocolate, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So if I were to pull out one of those candy bars and then I was to pull out like something really good, like some high quality chocolate, like some European
German chocolate,
Belgium chocolate candy bar, right? You could probably look at them and they would look very, very similar.
Yeah. Except
Like
you could see a reflection in the Charleston Chew.
But then when you take a bite, you know. And so here's my point is she can pretend like her marriage is one thing, like it's one thing is happening. But when it comes down to the actual test, the actual reality of it, it's like, that doesn't taste so good. I don't really like that. I want to put the fancy chocolate, or I want to put the chocolate that makes it look good over it, but when we taste it, it doesn't pass the test. And so the problem with that is, if you stick with this analogy, she's ingesting and consuming stuff that's not good for her again and again, and she's willing to continue to eat it over and over again because she doesn't have to face the reality that it's fake.
It feels like the best option. It's the only thing that's available.
Right.
In some ways, after 30 years of this, you almost become blind to the fact that there is beautiful Belgian German chocolate. Yeah. You know, like you don't even realize that you start to settle for the mess of pottage instead of keeping your birthright.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's probably her submitting this question. She probably didn't expect this answer. And the reality is Tyler and I, when we hear that question, we want to fight like hell for you. And when you're saying he's never had a consequence, well, he's like, whether he's had consequences or not, have you had boundaries to actually step up for your own truths to protect yourself? And guess what? Naturally, he'll get consequences if you step up for you. If you don't, then he won't.
A different way of saying that, exactly what you just said, is he's never had a consequence. Another way of saying that is I've never protected my values.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I actually started to protect my values, there would be some waves that would be made. And those waves would either invite change for him to come along, and he might be a really good man who just hasn't quite seen the light yet, or it will lead to you going on a pathway to not have waxy chocolate for a while, but eventually end up with the good Belgium stuff.
Exactly.
Because your values are worth protecting, and you don't have to settle. We don't even know this woman, but we talk to this woman every day in our offices, Brannon.
Yeah.
And you don't have to settle. Like, it's okay for you to keep your values. It's okay for you to fight for those things inside yourself. And you don't have to just put up with a husband who's going to lie to you for the next 30 years. You still have half of your life left, and you can start fighting for honesty.
These are basic values like trust. I want trust in a relationship. I want to be seen. That's okay. Like,
yes,
that's absolutely okay. So these are basic values that anybody can ask for in a relationship. And if those aren't being met, then step up for yourself to actually say, those are important.
Ask yourself how much it's costing you to not step up for those things.
Yeah.
What parts of you have you lost over the years because you've given up on those values that were so preeminent and important to you? And the reason why you're submitting the question now is because that part of you is still screaming on the inside saying, you got to see me. And you're like, I don't know what to do. I can't leave my husband. And it's like, but those parts are like, but you got to see me. Like,
yeah,
that's part of you. I'm part of you. And you got to start attending to those things and nurturing those things inside yourself.
Yep. Well, Tyler, this has been fun today.
Yeah, good questions. We love questions from our our listeners. We don't get to them as often as we like to because we like to have callers on. So if you have a question, go to therapybros.com and sign up to become a caller on the show. If you don't want to become a caller, you can still submit a question, and we get to them sometimes on days like today. But we love your questions, so thank you for what you bring.
All right, you guys, if this was helpful, please leave us a rating or a review. And until next time, keep on keeping on.